Hey folks, Raina Mermaid here. Welcome to my latest vlog. Today we're going to be talking about mermaid safety. Woo, I know you're just waiting for this vlog so you can sing the safety dance. A couple of things I wanted to tell you before we get started. We had my workshop last weekend for people who wanted to check out being a professional mermaid and what kind of stuff they might need to do for that, and it was awesome. We had a bunch of people come. We had like 3 people from Hawaii, which was cool, and some people from the UK and the States and Canada, and it was just fantastic. So thank you to everyone who participated. I have another workshop coming up. I'm going to post a link in the description. It's an online workshop for learning how to work with children in your mermaid company and all the ins and outs of that. And the cat is quiet until I want to do a vlog, and then she meows and screeches. Silly kitty. My book is still on sale until the end of Mother's Day. You can get 20% off of it right now by using the code, I think it's MOM10. I'll post it on here anyway. And you can get the ebook version for 10% off. And my book has everything you need to know about being a mermaid. There's all this awesome, helpful tips and tricks, and then there's a whole reference section in it. So I hope you find it helpful. Thank you to everyone who's been buying it. Okay, so health when you're in your tail, swimming. This is sort of adapted from a thread I've done on Mer Network. I look like crap right now. Fix this. Here we go. There are a few obvious things that you deal with when you are being a mermaid. One of the big ones is muscle cramps. A lot of people get muscle cramps when they're swimming, or they get them in their feet, and the foot cramps are the worst because your foot kind of like it either like arches this way or goes this way, and you've got it in a monofin, and it totally sucks. We've talked about it to death on the forum, but there are tips and tricks that you can do to get around that. One is to be hydrated and make sure you've got enough potassium and magnesium in your body. I actually take supplements before I go swimming, or you can eat a banana. I'm sensitive to potassium, so I can't just eat bananas all the time, but I might drink like a mineral water or something. Be quiet, kitty. And for your feet, like that'll help your feet in the long run, but you can also get monofin booties or half booties to help your feet, and that makes a big difference too, and also keeps the monofin blisters away. We already did a vlog on chlorine, so if you want to hear all about chlorine, I would like you to please take a look at that vlog. Drowning is a real risk, and it's a real risk anytime you're in the water, and we don't have flotation devices, but our tails are kind of floaty. Drowning can kind of end up having its own vlog anyway, but I think it's a lot of common sense in that you're taking a risk when you're in a mermaid tail in any body of water, so you should never be by yourself ever. Back injuries, they can happen. They can happen to you, and they can happen to your mertender or merwrangler. You want to always be very carefully lifting somebody or lifting yourself or moving around so that you're not hurting yourself or slipping on wet floor. Those are kind of just sort of the obvious ones that are out there that people know about, and they're spoken about at great length in the forum. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that a lot of people don't always think about. So one is ear infections. And in my vlog about chlorine, I talked to you about the ear drops I use, and you can check that out, and the earplugs I use, and you can check that out. So those are really the only ways that you can combat it. Some people get ear infections more often than others. It's really just about being able to equalize properly and get the water out of your ears. Some people use an ear vacuum. For me, I just always have to wear earplugs, and I'll probably never be able to scuba dive unless I can have a surgery, which really sucks. So ear infections, it can happen in any kind of water. Same with sinus infections. They can happen, and even if you're trying to prevent it, it can happen. Another big thing is fungal infections and warts, because pool decks are dirty. So you want to try not to be walking on those in your bare feet at any time. Make sure you are wearing shoes and minimize the contact that your skin has on those dirty floors. Put down a yoga mat or a towel if you can help it. Some kind of barrier. It's not so bad when you're in the water, but yeah, definitely. If you get a fungal infection, there are a lot of over-the-counter medications you can use to get rid of it, but you should definitely talk to a pharmacist or see your doctor. If you get a wart, there's a lot of treatments you can use too, but the one that we use here in Canada is hockey tape. And I know so many people that have tried every everything known to man to get rid of a wart that they got from a shower or a pool or a gym mat or something, and nothing worked, even getting them frozen. And then you use a roll of hockey tape and tape it up and let the thing suffocate, and it's gone. So those are things you have to think about. Conjunctivitis, eye infections, and pink eye. We talked about this a bit in the other vlog, and using special eye drops and eye gels can help with that and minimizing the amount of time your eyes are in the water. There is a very, very, very rare parasite that can be picked up from fresh water if it's stagnant and it goes in through your eyes or your nose, and it can kill you. It is very, very rare. And it only happens in stagnant water, but it is something you need to be aware of. And I think governments, they have to warn you about that stuff too. You usually hear a warning like, don't swim in this water and stuff, but you should look into it if it's something you're concerned about. I'm not really worried about it. I don't ever swim in stagnant water. I don't get the opportunity to swim in fresh water very often, but it is something to think about. If you get out of a pool and you have blurry vision, or your eyes are a little infected, that can often happen after being in chlorine water. But if it's lasting for a very long time, you need to go to the doctor. You may even need to go to emergency because you can do permanent damage to your eyes. I think the rule of thumb is that if it lasts for more than 3 hours, you need to go. So here's a really gross one. It's called crypto. Crypto happens. It's also a parasite. Happens when kids poop in a pool, if they have diarrhea or they poop in a pool. And pools have procedures and health regulations for cleaning those pools, and some of them don't follow it. And they'll overshock the pool and they won't actually kill the crypto. And I think they're supposed to be closed for at least 12 hours without anybody coming in. Like, the chemicals have to sit for 12 hours in order to kill the crypto. And if you get crypto, then you get diarrhea and vomiting, and it sucks. And that's really how it happens, is fecal accidents in a pool. And it is disgusting, but it is a reality of the mermaid world. Another thing is for females. So for mermaids, yeast infections can be a big problem, especially if you're sitting around in a wet bathing suit. Sometimes using creams as a preventative measure before you go in the pool can make a difference, but really it comes down to minimizing how long you're sitting in a wet bathing suit inside a hot tale, you know, festering everything down there. You can also take probiotics, and you can get those over the counter, and really, like, there's not a whole lot of danger in them, but, you know, again, talk to your pharmacist or your doctor. And probiotics are really good for women in general for your health, but they will also ward off yeast infections. So I know this is like, I should have called this vlog the TMI vlog, right? Let me just think if there's anything else. I'm taking this from a thread that I've got here. I'm sure there's lots of other things, and like I said, we're going to talk about drowning and stuff like that in its own vlog. I do want to talk to you about other sort of little safety things about swimming. You should never swim alone. You should never breath hold practice alone. And even with monofins, you're supposed to be able to reach down and get the monofin off your feet if there's ever an emergency and you need to get your legs free. You take a risk when you do mermaid swimming, and that's why insurance can be so crazy. You do take a risk. And you know, we go to some extreme lengths sometimes to get really beautiful footage and photos and videos, and I want you to know that when you see my photos and videos, I've always got Sean with me. There's lifeguards, and there's usually other mermaids and stuff like that. So if there was ever an emergency, I've got people like safety swimmers with me, and they're trained. Everybody's trained professionals and trained in first aid and CPR. So you see this beautiful photo of me underwater, and I'm holding my breath, and I've been doing it for a few minutes, and I've got weights in my tail or something, and but there's all this stuff on the outside that's happening to make sure that I'm safe. So yeah, please don't just hop into a pool by yourself and start holding your breath, or hop into the ocean and think that you can swim out really far and you're totally going to be okay. You see these beautiful photos and videos of Hannah Fraser. She always has safety divers, you know, and you can't just go down and take a scuba tank full of air with you and think you can pose for these lovely photos and not be trained on that sort of stuff either. So talking about weights, I do use weights in my tails sometime for photo purposes and filming purposes. A good one to use are these ones, the kind of ankle weights, because you can put them right in between your thighs, or you can actually wrap them around your ankle, and they're light enough increments that you can kind of just get it so that you're neutrally buoyant, because I'm very positively buoyant. And if I get myself at least neutrally or even a little bit negative, then I can sink a lot easier. But I never put so much weight in my tail that I can't swim properly. because you get a foot cramp or your hair gets caught or something happens and you're down there and that weight is holding you down. You want to be able to get it out. So I tend to keep mine really close to my waistline so I can pull it out if I need to. But again, I'm never by myself, and I've got hand signals for emergencies if I need them. The more popular method is to have a weight belt, and you've seen my weight belt in my last video. Weight belts have easy release so that if you need to ditch it, it comes off. And I've never taken scuba diving, but what I've heard from people is that when you're scuba diving and you're wearing a weight belt, they are made and you are trained to be able to just take it off. So you just ditch it. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean so that you can live, right? Anytime you're doing stuff like this with water, you're taking your life in your hands. And it's better to just talk to people, don't do things by yourself, have people with you, have safety measures in play. And even though, you're looking on the internet for all this advice, how to be a mermaid and how do I swim better, how do I hold my breath better, how do I do this, remember that we're all just performers and very few of us are actually trained professionals. Like Mermaid Lyndon is a trained professional with breath holding, and she can give you ideas, but legally, like you just can't take that kind of stuff and run with it because you could harm yourself. And it's always good to ask your doctor if you're healthy enough. Maybe if you've got asthma or you've got a heart murmur or something like this, maybe you aren't somebody who should be going down deep into the water. So these are all different health risks that you take. Another risk with mermaiding, and it's kind of, it is a big risk, and I want to talk about it, but it kind of sounds a little different than that stuff, is sort of, how to word this really, because it's happening on YouTube, it happens on my videos. Sexual harassment, it happens a lot. It happens all over the internet, but it's quite aggressive in the mermaid community. We've come up with a name for the men who do it, and you know what? In my experience, it's usually always men. I'm sure there's women out there, but it usually is always men. They call them merverts, and merverts are the ones who message you emails or messages or comments that are very pornographic in nature and really inappropriate. And, they might make really lewd requests of you or say some very rude comments. And a rude comment is one thing, but like a sexually harassing comment is another. And it does go with the territory, and it really sucks that it happens. And every once in a while I get really mad and I tell these people off. Because they try to sexualize everything, they post on your videos with you and children and they try to sexualize it, and it's really disgusting and awful. And I don't really have a problem. I wrote this in my book. Like, if you have a mermaid fetish or an underwater fetish or something, that's your business. That's fine. You can have that, and you can be a totally healthy and adjusted individual. That's not a big deal. It's when you project it on somebody who is not consenting to that activity with you. So when you start trying to talk dirty to me and that's not something I want, that's not, you don't have my consent to do that, and that's not okay. That's harassment, and it does happen. So if you're thinking about being a mermaid and you're considering the risks and you're looking at the more physical things, I do want you to know that there is this dark little space in the internet where that happens a lot, and it happens a lot here on YouTube, and I get several emails a week at least from people, and it sucks that it happens. And I do say it out of concern because there are a lot of young girls, and I do get worried about pedophiles, and it's just something you have to be careful. If you're a kid and you're watching this, you're like 12, 13, 14, 15, please make sure your parents know you have a YouTube channel and you're making videos. Make sure they know you have a Facebook page. I know it's really lame, and you think, oh, that's not going to happen to me, and you think mom and dad don't really understand. I've had a couple of bad experiences when I was growing up where I thought that, and I got myself into bad situations where adults were trying to take advantage of me. And I was very lucky that I got out of those situations without anything bad actually happening to me, more so I just learned a lesson from it. But I do get very worried. I had a stalker once when I first started my mermaid career, and I had to phone the police. He was local, and it was very messy, and I saw him online trying to contact all the little girls who were mermaid enthusiasts. So you really have to be careful with that, ladies. And it happens to the boys too, So it is a risk with mermaiding. And if you're young, please talk to your parents about that. And if you're a parent watching this or your kid is wanting to do this, it is a reality. I don't want to scare you because it's a beautiful, wonderful community and you can do a lot of great stuff in it. But like anywhere else, there's bad people. So I talk about that in my book a lot. And actually I have a whole section. What did I call it? the dark side of the mer world. So there's a whole chapter in my book about it if you want to read more. And I don't want to end on such a nasty note, but these are risks, and I want you to take them into consideration. A little bit of news for me. I'm gonna be selling some photo prints at Shore Things in Eastern Passage. I'm really stoked for that. They turned out beautifully. Check that out. I just love them. I took these at Merfest when we went to the aquarium, and I love them. Photography is a passion of mine. I don't get to do it very often anymore, but yeah, so these prints will be for sale. I've also got some notebooks. Raina Mermaid notebooks. Woo! They're going to be on sale, and we have tons of postcards that are going to be on sale. My book is also on sale at Shore Things, and lots of fun things. This is my octopus. He says hi. Taking a page from Mermaid Dan. Merman Dan. I'm sorry, Dan. I just called you a mermaid. Merman Dan. Yeah. What else? We did the Princess Tea Party, Mimi and I, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I think the next big thing I've got coming up is World Oceans Day, and I'll be doing that with Mermaid Nessie. I am also starting a new video series that is intended to share mermaid news. So if you have any news that you would like to share with me, it can be anything. It can be an announcement, an event you're going to do, a contest you're holding, you just got your own new tail, or you just launched your website, or I don't know, anything. Just tell me some of your mermaid news, and I'm going to be doing vlogs featuring mermaid news and featuring mermaid videos and featuring mermaid media links and things like that, and I would love to include you, so send me that stuff. And always, as always, if you have more questions that you would like to see answered in my vlogs, I do have planned vlogs, but I'm totally cool with just scrapping the plan and doing something that you guys want to hear, because this is meant to be a resource for you, and I want to make it worth your while. So thank you so much for watching and listening to my Canadian accent. And my octopus says hello, and Chicklet has finally stopped meowing. And I hope you have a great day, and check out the website, halifaxmermaids.com. Click under workshops if you want to see my workshops, and send me an email if you want to hear some more vlogs. Thanks. Bye.